in eastern Kentucky. The snowstorm is significant enough there where we're not able to get a number of vehicles out on the roads, so that's going to delay some of the road openings in counties, but we want to make sure that everyone is safe as we get through these storms. The next slide is the expected amount as we move through this first part of the snowfall and into what we expect for later in the day. Much smaller amount that is coming tonight, but still a little bit of an accumulation. This first burst is passing through. We're going to get a number of hours of skies without snow, but then we're going to see more. And the challenge here is the hardest hit areas of the flood could get another 3 to 4 inches tonight. If the snow wasn't tough enough, it's cold right now. It's going to get dangerously cold tonight and into tomorrow. So if we can show tonight's minimum temperature, again, getting down in the teens or the single digits in a number of parts of Kentucky. A little bit warmer, thankfully, in the east, it looks like, but the wind chills across much of Kentucky is going to be in the single digits or the negatives. So we'll talk about in a minute. People have done a great job getting power back up and on, but if you can't safely heat your home, call friends, call family, go stay with them, or contact one of your local shelters. We will find a place for you to stay, but it is going to be dangerously cold tonight going into tomorrow. And then Friday's going to be really cold too. So this is really 2 days of very concerning low temperatures. It's also going to complicate our work on the roads, make it a little bit tougher, especially on ice. So you should expect, especially early in the mornings, for icy travel conditions Thursday and Friday. I will say our transportation cabinet is doing a great job in the midst of this to get roads as clear as we can. Couple things that people need to keep in mind. After the last big snowstorm, that ice sandwich that we had, we lost 4 to 5 people through cardiac arrest while shoveling snow. So we want to message this. It might not seem like there's a lot out there, but we don't want to lose anybody in the cleanup part. So take it slow, take breaks, make sure that you're getting a lot of fluids, lift with your legs. Now that we know that we're losing a number of people through this, we just want to make sure that everybody is taking care of themselves. The extra piece, I want to make sure I say it again today, is do not drive around barriers. They are up in our counties where roads are still flooded. I think we had a number of rescues yesterday, almost all of them were people driving around barriers. You drive around the barrier, your car gets swept away. It threatens your life, but it also threatens the life of every person out there trying to rescue you in these really cold conditions. So please, for your own safety and for everybody else's safety, do not go around barricades. All right, in this snow event, state highway crews are in all counties. They've worked overnight. They continue to work this morning. They are plowing and treating the roads. Conditions are improving where snow was lighter in northern counties, scattered regions to the south, and where the storm has already moved out. But all crews are still on the roads, and many of the routes are still snow covered, hazardous, even interstate's primary routes. I would travel only if necessary. Active crashes on our interstates and parkways have included several lanes being blocked in Louisville and one in Rockcastle blocking southbound I-75. We are clearing that or in the process of it now. Temperatures remain below freezing today and dangerously low tonight, where salt will be less effective. So expect hazardous conditions. Take a lot of time if you have to go somewhere. And if you don't need to go on that trip, don't go on that trip until we can get the roads in better condition. Remember, goky.ky.gov can give you information on snow conditions, but also on which roads are still blocked and which roads are opening up. So when we look at that piece, we're still dealing with a historic number of road closures, 220 currently closed, 209 from high water, 10 from mudslides, and 1 from a rock slide. That's still changing. We're getting more roads open, but water is slowly draining due to high river levels. And again, that can cause embankment issues to where in some of the days since the worst flooding, we've still gotten some new road closures. So again, go ky.ky.gov. You can check on the most recent conditions. Crews will continue to focus on restoring vital transportation links and keeping Kentuckians safe. And I just want to say that 220 roads, those are just state and federal roads. There are a whole lot of county roads. Pike County, I think, had 300 plus roads impacted outside of our official count, but we're working really hard to get them open. And with many roads still flooded, even plow trucks will need to detour around, which could affect snow clearing operations. So keep that in mind. The good news is we have facilities in every county and will remain on call to keep Kentuckians safe. Our National Guard has continued its good work. As of 8 a.m., we have more than 250 Kentucky Guardsmen actively responding to the aftermath of flooding and for this winter weather. In response to the floods, our Guardsmen remain on call to continue responding for search and rescue and high axle transportation. And in areas where the water is receding in eastern Kentucky, engineers from the 149th Maneuver Enhancement Brigade are working closely with officials to assess the damages and prepare their teams for the important missions of making roads navigable again. Other teams will continue to work debris removal and assist transporting supplies and conducting welfare checks. Specifically in response to the snowfall and freezing temperature, Guardsmen were staged across the Commonwealth where they're ready to assist road crews and emergency responders in areas where they are needed the most. I want to again personally thank the men and women of the National Guard, of the Kentucky State Police, of KYEM for their hard work, resilience, and service to our Commonwealth. Just about all these people have been working 3-4 days on very little sleep, and they get up and they get after it because they believe in the mission of protecting Kentuckians. For Kentucky State Police, since the morning of February 15th, they've now answered 12,508 calls for service. Also, since the snowstorm began last night, Kentucky State Police troopers have responded to 40 non-injury accidents, 3 injury accidents, and 39 motorist assists as of this morning. No fatal accidents. Let's keep that. Let's make sure that we're taking our time, we're protecting ourselves and the motorists around us. So slow down, take your time. Last night, about 6:45 Central Time, Kentucky State Police Post 1 began receiving multiple calls regarding a semi-truck that collided with a Kentucky Transportation Cabinet snowplow. Troopers responded to the crash on I-24 in Lyon County and found that due to hazardous conditions and limited visibility, the semi-truck rear-ended the snowplow. Thankfully, no injuries were reported. In fact, the plow was repaired and back to work within 2 hours. That's some serious dedication. The work from our state police and our transportation cabinet does not go unnoticed. They continue to rise to the challenge time and time again. So remember, it's dangerous out there. You need to give a wide berth to these transportation vehicles. So make sure you are especially careful around them. They are our Kentucky neighbors. They need to get home safe too. Okay, on the flood yesterday, while conducting search and rescue flights, the Kentucky State Police Aircraft Branch located a dock connected to 15 boats that had broken away and washed down the Kentucky River. The flight crew coordinated with first responders on the ground to identify and secure the dock before it collided with a bridge. Kentucky State Police pilots have flown federal emergency management officials over flooded areas to try to expedite our requests for individual assistance. This morning, I also want to thank our fish and wildlife officers. Kentucky game wardens from across the state have been tirelessly working since Saturday night and conducting countless land and water rescues and delivering critical life-sustaining supplies to disaster victims. During this tragedy, it's been uplifting and promising to see first responders and community members unite as humanitarians to save lives. The Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources is prepared and committed to continue to provide response efforts as needed. They're using boats and off-road vehicles to gain access to areas that are not reached by conventional means and they continued to conduct welfare checks, answer calls for medical emergencies, and to deliver food, water, cleaning supplies, and sources of fuel. Since Saturday night, 2 game wardens navigated high water by vehicle and on foot to rescue a family in Perry County near the Big Creek area whose home was being overtaken by floodwaters. The wardens carried an infant and a 3-year-old child through rushing floodwaters and returned to the residence to extract the remainder of the family, delivering them all to dry land. And on Tuesday, Kentucky game wardens navigated 20 miles of round-trip treacherous, debris-filled waters by boat near Johns Creek area of Floyd County, where they rescued an elderly woman in need of critical medical assistance. This effort took several hours. These are just a couple examples of the good work of Fish and Wildlife, and these stories you could tell for all of these boat crews, all of these first responders, just incredible heroism, time and time again. And when you see it, they get these people to safety. They jump right back in the boat, right back in that helicopter, and they get back out there to help even more people. Flood-related fatalities are holding steady, thankfully, at only 14. We don't believe that we have missing persons at the time. There are some calls that we have coming in where we don't think the individuals are missing. We just need to ultimately contact them. Our hope is that we won't lose anybody else. But remember, these are 14 children of God that aren't with us anymore, and a lot of families are hurting. That's the reason that we established the Team Kentucky Storm Relief Fund to assist those impacted by floods and the severe weather system. Right now, we've got, I believe, $120,000 that have been donated from 1,234 donors. That includes a generous donation of $20,000 from CSX. We'll need at least $20,000 more just to cover the funerals, which is the first expense that we've always paid for. The least we can do is mourn together and to make sure these families aren't having to worry about that in the midst of the tragedy that they are going through. We still have flood operation teams across the state. Primarily teams are in Floyd County today. We have 2 urban search and rescue teams, the Ohio Task Force and the Missouri Task Force 1, that are out working. We have 2 emergency teams from out of state, North Carolina urban search and rescue teams, and Indiana conservation officers. State teams include Covington Fire, Bowling Green Fire, and Jefferson County Special Operations that are still out there working. Thank you. Thank you to all of you, our out-of-state partners. We will be there when you need us. And to all of our other areas of Kentucky that have turned out or are still out there, thanks for helping your neighbors. We are one Commonwealth, one Team Kentucky, and you are showing that to the world. Power outages. As we sit here right now, it's gone down from my number 1,691. Remember, this was over 40,000 at some point with high floodwaters and now all this snow. Our utility workers are working so hard. So thanks to those individual linemen and women. Thank you to our utility companies for taking this so seriously. Restoration efforts continue. Actually, as you look up at our board, Pike County was red, meaning the most outages until pretty much last night into this morning. It's now in the green. That is really good news, though. For everybody out there, be careful, with your power if your home has been flooded. And also, as you're cleaning up, remember, you can get mold, you can get spores, so be really careful about that as well. Drinking water. We are now 0 facilities that are not operational at all. 21 have limited operations. We're down to 8,600 connections without water. That is a good step. We have 44,812 connections under boil water advisories. As Director Gibson is going to tell you, we are shipping as much water as people need, and we're going to continue in that mission. At wastewater, we have 3 facilities not operational, 30 in limited operations, 11 bypassing, 24 reporting lift stations are overflowing. 215 people still in our state parks. They're sheltered in 4 parks: Jenny Wiley, Natural Bridge, Buckhorn, and Cumberland Falls. We have some people still in Jenny Wiley because the water is so high there that it's not safe for folks to leave. But as I learned while I'm there, we have great broadband at Jenny Wiley that's allowing people to work from there. And then just the number of people that are each morning able to get out, go to work, and then come back if their homes have been impacted has been pretty amazing to see. I want to urge all Kentuckians, if you do not have power, and I'm going to say this again, we need you to move to a shelter or another place that's warm. We have 11 shelters open around the state. If we can put those up, here are the emergency shelters as of today. If you need them, make sure that you use them. An update from our Justice and Public Safety Cabinet. The Lee Adjustment Center, that's a medium security prison in Lee County, is under a boil water advisory, but we've got water bottles being distributed there. DOCJT has damage and flooding in its training facility. The training has unfortunately stopped for the foreseeable future in parts of the outdoor range in Madison County until we're able to make repairs. As a reminder, when to call 911 and when not to. 911 is for emergency or life-threatening situations. Call it if you're in that situation. But if you have other needs, make sure that you call the Rapid Needs number, 502-607-6665. Some good news today from General Motors. OnStar Crisis Mode services are activated in Kentucky. Anyone in an OnStar equipped Buick, Cadillac, Chevrolet, or GMC vehicle can press their in-vehicle blue button for free crisis assist services or the red emergency button if they need immediate emergency help. The OnStar blue button can be used for routing assistance away from danger, locating resources, fuel, shelter, food, and placing a phone call. The red emergency button gives drivers and occupants immediate help for emergency assistance. This is typically a service that people have to pay for. They are turning it on for all of the owners or lessors of those cars during this crisis. That's a really kind thing to do. We have approximately 200,000 vehicles in Kentucky that are going to have access to these services. So thank you to General Motors for looking out for our people during this period of time. A final thank you to our PVAs, our Property Value Administrators. See, in this application for individual assistance, we got to give numbers. We got to give proof. And they've been working really hard to overlay where the flooding was on top of their property valuation maps to show the value of property that's been impacted and damaged. That doesn't give us an exact damage figure, but it does tell you what the potential scope can be. KYEM estimates there are approximately 18,500 properties that have been affected with a total assessed value of over $1.2 billion. Again, that's not the overall damage to structures. That's the value of the structures that have been impacted. And those are only residences, courthouse, and structures. It's not talking about infrastructure that could also and has been impacted. I want to thank the PVA offices in Bell, Breathitt, Clay, Harlan, Johnson, Knott, Lee, Leslie, McGoffin, Martin, Owsley, Perry, and Pike. Thank you all for your work. It's going to help us hopefully secure this individual assistance, meaning your work is going to help provide relief to so many. So thanks for working the extra hours. Finally, Brittany and I are encouraging folks to donate blood to make sure that all of our hospital-bound folks that have been through a lot have the care that they need. We are going to do a blood drive in our state capitol on Monday, February 24th to support disaster preparedness and recovery in the wake of this month's devastating storms. We encourage Frankfort residents and state employees to sign up for appointments from 9:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the Capitol Rotunda. Want to finally remind people we have applied to Secretary Noem and President Trump for individual assistance. We believe that application is being reviewed right now. If it is granted, it will open immediate need assistance as well as cleaning and sanitizing money, and then a separate application process where if we get individual assistance and if individuals can prove damages, they could secure a grant award up to $43,600. Okay, with all that, I'm going to turn it over to Director Gibson. He's going to then turn it over to Secretary Gray. At that point, we will answer questions. We're not out of the woods yet. We've had flooding. We're still dealing with flooding. We've had a snowstorm on top of that. Now we're going to deal with frigid temperatures, but folks, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We get through this weekend, going into next week, it's going to get in the 40s at least, and that's going to feel balmy for most of us. So let's keep pushing through. Let's make sure we stay safe. Let's get through these next couple days. Director?
Well, good morning, and thank you all. First of all, I'd like to start by thanking some of the groups that have been helping. And one of those that I often forget to mention is just the media that are here. You all come in, your staff are here, you all are telling our story across the state and the nation at this point. And just thank you for getting that word out. The help's coming in. People hear about our story. The safety messages that you all are sharing can't be appreciated enough by my team here, because we're trying to message that safety, and you all are that mouthpiece for us. So thank you all, as we also include you all in the list of people that are very helpful in one of these type of disasters. And we know that there's no way we could go down the list and list every agency and every volunteer agency and every neighbor that's helped a neighbor. And as we look through it, we know that these agencies that have been mentioned by the governor this morning, they're very numerous at this point, and that's what people expect from Kentucky. And that's what Kentucky is about. We know that. This is one state helping one another, and all of your governmental agencies and your local agencies, cities and counties alike, have all come together during this time. From this position that I sit in, I get to talk with many of these local officials on a daily basis. Many times, those local officials are reaching out to this office, telling us what's going on in your community. Now they're starting to share back images with us, and it's really telling the devastating story that's went on across the Commonwealth. And as we go through this disaster, I think that the information that the governor shares with the media and the world through this outlet is so influential in a way that helps people understand just exactly what the struggles are here in the Commonwealth. And then you can see how you can find a way to lend a hand to your neighbor, or to you can help your neighboring county, or if it's a state to state. So this elevated response in one of these major disasters is the best way through one of these. And you see this team in here working every day, night and day, making sure that we're coordinating that resource for you all. As we go through this, we just want to make sure that we talk about that safety message. Yesterday, my teams reported back, and I say my teams, they're your teams, the urban search and rescue teams, the local rescue squads that are doing these search and rescue missions continue to report that we have people driving through standing water, through high water, and it continues to cause issues for those guys that are trying to get guys and men and women that are going back into those communities to continue these search efforts. So as we talk about that, please stay safe, stay out of that standing water, don't drive around the barricades, pay attention to your local officials and the information that they're sharing with you. Safety is our top priority. We're in a winter event has now started. Obviously, we've shared with you many slides about the cold temperatures that are coming, and it's time to prepare now. This temperature is not going away for a few days. Your local meteorologists across all of the news channels, along with the National Weather Service, continue to warn us of these below zero wind chills and the temperatures that are affecting us. The governor's done a great job of sharing that information with you all, and we just reiterate, prepare now for an extended few days of extremely cold weather. If that means you need to move to a friend or a neighbor, a shelter, the governor's given those locations to you. Please heed that advice. He's trying to prepare you for the next few days. A few summary items of the things that have been going on. I get a lot of questions of how this event is unfolding, and we continue to share the good news. But there's a very tragic story to this. Many deaths that you all have been talking about, the 14, but also the other good news, I guess the life-saving measures that have been performed, the stories like the governor told, as he talked about the rescues that just one particular agency had done, and then another particular agency had done, and then all the work that's been going on. There's no way to put a number on all of the rescues that are done, because we'll never hear about every single one of those. But we just hear stories that, like in Pike County alone, Martin County alone, over 300 people were pulled from the water. Now, that may mean their house was just being surrounded and they needed to move to safety, but those people were moved out of harm's way and moved in by your local first responders and these teams that have come to help us. So it's just good news like that we can share, that, it's uplifting to know that there is that kind of help for you all and available if you need it. We've taken over 250 calls on our portal, our other needs assessment portal that we're taking in. We're working through every one of those. We're not completely caught up, but we're very close, and our team is dedicated to getting to those calls, making sure we're addressing your needs. We know that 911 is for those emergencies. This is those non-emergency things. About 250 people have utilized that resource. We continue to watch this weather as it unfolds. We've talked about it. I want you all to know, where we're at with it. The Transportation Cabinet's going to be briefing you on their efforts here in just a second. So be prepared for the winter weather that we have. A few other things to talk about. Blankets. We have asked and received from FEMA this morning a shipment of blankets that came in from DC overnight, and those are being sent out to the distribution centers to make their way to those in need, the ones without power, the ones that have lost all their things due to it getting wet, and they don't have those necessary things to stay warm. So thank you to FEMA for expediting, and that's to get those blankets into our hands so we can get those pushed across to those areas that are in need. So with that, also would like to say that we've been pushing out a lot of drinking water. We talk often about this critical infrastructure that affects so many Kentuckians. Clean water is necessary. There's no doubt. And we have plenty of these water systems. Your officials in those departments are working very hard to get their systems up and running. But many people are still under boil water advisories. There's a lot of issues going on as they continue to rebuild that infrastructure and rebuild the capacity to take care of those needs. To that effect, here at our office, we've shipped out almost 1 million bottles of water. 938,880 bottles of water have left here. It's kind of a big number to say, but you think about that. We keep water on hand for these emergencies in advance. And as we've went through our supplies, FEMA have restocked our shelves so we can continue to move that product out. So we know that many of your officials are reaching out for that, and that's a good number to just talk about. But over 900,000 bottles of water just since this event has began, we've pushed out to Kentucky. So I'd just like to end with just thanking everybody for the support and trust that you've entrusted us with to do this work. These are challenging times, and we definitely understand that we still have people that need our help. We just ask you to stay safe, follow those official updates and warnings that we're sending out. And if you have needs that we're not addressing, please let us know, and we'll do our very best to take care of them. For that, I'd like to turn it over to Secretary Gray from the Transportation Cabinet to give you a brief update on what's going on with the roads and in his cabinet. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Director. I'm just going to amplify on a few points that the governor covered a lot of our transportation topics. First, I just got a text message about the crashes in Louisville. Those crashes have been cleared, and those roads are now open. The crash on southbound 75 in Rockcastle, Mount Vernon, that too has been cleared. So that's good news. Now, the governor says routinely that safety is our top priority. And that's not just a catchphrase. That's from the heart. It's a big deal. I've seen it in our 2,300 highway employees, our highway heroes. In each county, they're responding to flood, snow, flood, now snow again. Yesterday, I was in District 12 and met with some of our folks there, thanking them, being grateful to them. In fact, I got a story about one of our crew members, a snowplow operator, Michael Caldwell, who was flooded. His own home was flooded in the floods of 22. He's from Minnie. I may have said this in Floyd County. So his home was flooded. Next day, he was back at work. His home was flooded Saturday night. The next day, he was back at work. That's just an illustration of the commitment and the talent and the skills. Now, the governor mentioned that we've still got 200 roads closed by floodwaters. Now, what that means is that our equipment has to detour. We have to realign our plow routes, our treatment routes, but we are getting the work done. Now, let me say this too. Governor's already said it. Let me punctuate it. If you don't need to drive, don't. Do not. If you do, please drive more cautiously, more slowly. We had, and the governor mentioned this too, we had one of our snow plows hit, plowed into on I-24, and no injuries, fortunately, but that's an illustration again of please give a wide berth to these equipment operators, to this equipment. please, please, please. Want to warn about one other thing. These cold temperatures, some winds, there are other dangers. These higher winds forecast that could cause snow blowing back onto the roads and create drifts, even in cleared areas. I want to close by being thankful and grateful to all the partners. You know, these first responders, these rescues are just amazing, astonishing in many respects. We're grateful for that, for KYEM and all those who are working with them. Director Gibson and his team, for KSP, for the National Guard, for FEMA today, for so many volunteers coming in from everywhere, as the governor has mentioned. We're grateful, and those are extraordinary partners to be working with today. Governor.
We're going to open it up for a few questions, and then we're going to get back to work. We'll start with Carolina, who's here from WLEX. We are preparing information for the legislature. The legislators we've talked to are very interested in helping. We need a couple things. Number one, in the last budget, they put a cap on the amount that we could spend responding to a natural disaster. We're there. And ultimately, we're going to need that cap undone. We warned during the session that you can't stop responding in a natural disaster. We're there. And so we need that cap undone. We're also going to need a form of a safe fund. If you remember, after the tornadoes in the west and the flooding in the east, a safe fund was created especially to help our local governments because just their portion of some of the FEMA match or the dollars that they have to put forward before reimbursement could overwhelm a county pretty easily. There needs to be a portion of that for some of the educational facilities that have been hit as well. But I think we've learned from the last two funds, and this one will look a little bit different, but will operate even better than the other two. Those are the two main things that we're going to need. Tom Latek, Kentucky Today.
Thank you, Governor. Good morning. Have you got any idea how much you're going to ask the General Assembly to appropriate?
We're putting that together right now. Part of it is we're looking for some pockets of dollars that they could move if they choose not to take it from the rainy day fund or the budget reserve trust fund, which is its other name. So I want to be able to talk openly with them and get to the right number there before putting one out publicly that might create any type of pressure. But those two things are really important. Uncapping the amount that we can spend directly in response to a natural disaster, and secondly, needing that assistance for in the past, there have been 3 buckets. There probably only need to be 2 in this, and that's education, that's our city and counties, and we could put those together pretty easily as one bucket and actually be able to work probably a little more seamlessly there and meet the needs of all of it. And then the transportation bucket, which was in all of the other safe funds. Karen Czar, WKY.
Thank you, Governor. First off, can anyone with FEMA comment at this point about their initial thoughts after yesterday's flyover, if they're able to at this point? And for those of us, or for those who are listening or watching nationally, as we go from extreme weather event to extreme weather event in just a matter of days, and it's affected every county in Kentucky, how intricate is it that we have crews in from other states on the ground right now? Thank you.
We are working with FEMA to supplement our application on a real-time basis for individual assistance. The PVAs have given us some really good information. We've got other folks that have been out there documenting all of the damage, and we're having to provide some pretty specific information because opposed to 2021 or 2022 when houses were just wiped out and you could fly over something and get pictures and say, well, of course we've met this amount. This is where people have had 6 feet or 2 feet of water that has ruined everything on the first floor or the only floor of the house that they're in. And so the damage you can't always see in the same way. The before and after pictures, though, are pretty compelling. I mean, you look at some of these subdivisions that are almost underwater, half of every house under, businesses that have been flooded all the way through. I know that we have enough damage. We've got to prove it because this one wasn't just in eastern Kentucky where we're seeing some of the worst damage. It was all across Kentucky, and that application can include all of those damages. We couldn't have done what we've done in rescuing people and doing welfare checks without the crews from outside of Kentucky. Again, we're really grateful that they answered the call. Grateful that we've got the USAR teams that are here in the EOC. They've been a great addition. We get better every time. We learn every time. And every pod that's in this EOC of different units takes that knowledge and brings an even better understanding and response every single time that we're in here. Listen, without the hard work of our teams in the field, our teams here, our first responders in the county, this would have been a lot worse, a lot worse. We've suffered a lot, but I'm really grateful that these teams were able to minimize the loss of life to where we are right now. And finally, Stan from WEKU.
Thank you. You mentioned the crews that have been out there working tirelessly for days on end. How is their morale holding up? And you also mentioned a call for blood donations. Have there been many reports of injuries from the flooding or the current winter storm?
Yeah, the call for blood donations is because we know it's needed every time one of these hit. And it's not just injuries, which we've had some, but it's the fact that blood drives get canceled. Different areas that need it can be harder to reach. You can see in every natural disaster, it impacts the blood supply across the United States, which is already far too low. It's also just something that people can do to pay it forward for those that are in helping us that in their time of need may need it. It's a tangible act of love that anybody that qualifies can do to help their fellow human being. And maybe in this world when it feels just a little bit out of control, with all these weather events hitting us one time after another time, it's something that you can do that you know you're helping, that you know is going to help somebody out there, whether they're dealing with a regular condition they face and need that to stay here on planet Earth, or are in that emergency crisis moment. And remember, that could always be us. That could always be one of our family members. So please, everybody, whether it's through the Capitol event or anywhere else, take this moment to think about donating blood. Find a local blood drive. Let's make sure that there's always enough out there. I will say for morale, I've been really impressed. I've been really impressed. It would be easy to in many of our areas or in this facility to have a level of PTSD, of weariness about the number of these or how long this one's gone on, flooding and snow and now dangerously cold temperatures. But everybody's in here working together. Everybody is bringing everything they have. I'm seeing the same performance on day 4 as I did on day 1. And we're seeing that in our transportation crews and everybody out there. It's really amazing. Everybody working together, keeping their spirits up, and they know the work they're doing. They get to see the kids that they pull out of danger and their parents and the animals as well. So to everybody out there, again, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's a long tunnel. We've got to get pretty much through this weekend, but we'll get through it and we'll get through it together. Thank you all very much.